Hey guys, in this video, I'll show you a complete guide on how you can set up Slack in your business, use it for both internal and external client communication, and also we're going to go over a bit more advanced features that you might not know. And the reason why I'm making this video is I've implemented Slack in over 50 different businesses, so I know a thing or two about Slack. So even if you're a power user or an advanced user, there's probably going to be some things in this video that you don't know about. And also, if you're a beginner, I'm going to go over everything in terms of how you need to set up your channel, so what are the best features to use, and overall just how to get it going in your company. My name is Tony. I run an operations and consulting company called OpsKings, where we help businesses streamline their operations and automate their business. I would also encourage you, if you like this video, to like, share, and subscribe. And without any further ado, I'm going to walk you through this entire thing. So the first thing that you need to understand about Slack is what are the different use cases we can use Slack for. So the first one is obviously internal communication. Slack inherently was made to substitute email and basically remove all the email threads and the back and forths and just speed up the way your business is communicating internally. So internal communication, you probably, if you're using Slack, you're definitely using it for this. So that's the main use case that we can use Slack for. The second use case is using it for client communication. Again, with the idea of removing yourself from email and making sure your entire team can see all the logs and just basically have a faster communication with the clients. And the third one, and this is an often one that people don't really use it a lot, is communicating with vendors and partners, right? So just making sure that all of your, outside vendors, like your accounting firm or your content agency, everyone's centralized in Slack as well. So you're not going to have to go through a back and forth over email, and that's just going to speed up that entire process. So if you want to make the most out of these three use cases, you need to make sure that your channel structure is actually set up correctly before diving deep into any sort of advanced features with Slack. So the way you set up your channel structure is really separating all of the channels into three main groups. One of them is called client channels, and client channels are separated between internal and external channels. And the reason we do that is we want to separate where are you communicating with your clients, with your team, and where are you communicating with your clients, with the clients itself. So internal channels, they are used to communicate with your team internally about all the client work. So instead of going to a department channel, you want to actually communicate about a client in a specific internal channel. When it comes to the external channel, you want to make sure that your team and the client are both in that channel, and that's where you're headlining all of the client communication. That's where everything is happening. There are two types of external channels. One is a single channel guest, and another one is a Slack Connect channel. Depending on if your client has a paid Slack account or not, you're going to need to invite your client into one of these two accounts. So if your client has a paid Slack account, you're going to be putting them in what's called a Slack Connect channel. If your client doesn't have a paid Slack account, which, if you're working with a bit of clients that are a bit more old school, used to working on email, you're basically going to create what's called a single channel guest channel. So you basically create a new channel and then you invite the client as a single channel guest to that channel. That way they do not need to pay for a paid Slack, nor do you need to pay for their user. The second group of channels is what are called department channels. And department channels are really separated into three main categories. Category one is called project channels. That's where effectively all of your internal projects are getting discussed about. So if your company is, building out a new website, you might have a website internal channel. If your company is maybe doing a podcast, you might have a podcast channel. So all of your internal projects that are non-related to your clients are going to go under this bucket, what we call project channels. The second group of department channels are called topical channels. And these mainly relate to departments. So, you have your marketing team, you have your sales team, you have your video team. So each one of those departments might have their own one or many topical channels where they discuss ongoing stuff and basically update the team on what is happening. Again, these channels are used for internal communication only and really shouldn't revolve around any client work. And the third type of department channels are what's called notification channels. And oftentimes you'll see people using this for sales, maybe, linking up their sales channel to a CRM so they get updates, when they close some deals, get new leads through the door. So basically a channels where you're getting notifications and updates that are most of the time automated, those basically fall under the category of notification channels. And the third large group is called partner channels. That's where mainly you're going to be communicating with all of your vendors and partners. And also same as goes goes for the client channels, we always want to have an internal and an external channel for all of our partners and vendors. So if you have your, a content media agency, you want to have a channel that you're communicating with the content team, but also you want to have an internal channel where you're discussing how is the progression of that particular partner or vendor going, right? So instead of, going back and forth over DMs and, having a bunch of different conversations about that particular vendor in all the different places, you want to make sure that basically you have a duplicate of that external channel as an internal channel, so you can do all of that communication there with you and your team. All right, so now that you understand how we organize all the channels, I'm going to show you a couple of examples of how we internally organize our Slack just to keep everything tidy and clean, and some of the best practices and cool features you guys can use yourself. So the first thing we do is all of our channels are actually organized into what are called sidebar sections. So we have team, clients external, clients internal, and then a random channels, direct messages, and typical external connections and archive. So these are just the basic sections we use, and the way you can create these is I created this XY. Basically, I created this channel so I can show you this. If you want to create a sidebar sections, you basically hover above one of these sections. So in this case, channels, you go right click and basically create a new section. So I'm going to call this one YouTube. And just give it a super simple video emoji, and all of those channels are now going to be basically be able to be organized into that new sidebar section. So this is a really helpful thing if you are trying to keep, you got a bunch of channels, you're trying to keep everything tidy. Highly advised to separate these into sidebars. The only downside with this is I believe unless you're on the enterprise plan, you cannot actually have these sidebars be set for your entire team. So everyone's going to have to set up these sidebars for themselves. So film a Loom video for your team or send them this video if they don't know how to actually set those up. And then some of the best features we use are stuff like a reminder feature, the later feature, and a lot of our client-facing team members use these features pretty much every single day to actually make sure they're getting their work done. So I'll show you a couple of examples of how we do that. So in a channel, one of the oftentimes things that happens is a client asks for a specific update or something to happen later on, or like, hey, could you reach out to me on Thursday to have that call? So oftentimes our employees use this remind feature to basically say, remind Tony to update the client on Thursday. Right, and it's basically gonna send a notification to me on Thursday 9 a.m. to update the client and make sure I do not forget about whatever the client or another team member told me to do. So very much this is a very used feature, at least for me personally, and a lot of our team members are using it as well. The second thing that I really discovered recently, and I think this is a newer Slack feature, is called the later. And later basically allows you to save a message and as this word itself says, basically manage it later on if you don't have the time to do it right now. So usually what people do is either tag something as unread or stuff like that, but oftentimes if you've seen a message but you can't get to it right away, you want to use this feature to actually store everything and then have a clean list of things you need to do, right? So if, for example, if a person told you of something on the extent of, hey, can you send me this doc, you can, if you're unable to do that right away, you can always save that message as later, and it will show up here in the left hand side under later, and there basically you can manage all of your saved messages that you didn't have time to actually get to, and then cross these off basically as a to-do list. I use this a lot, especially in terms of managing things that are escalated internally. This is a really handy feature. Another best practice that we do is basically we prompt all of our team members to use threads as much as possible. So instead of, discussing about a specific topic in a lot of back and forth messages, is basically using threads to centralize all of that communication in one single thread and make sure none of the information gets lost. So an example of, hey, can you send me this doc? Instead of sending a full-on new message, I can reply to that thread of, right, here is the doc. And then all the information and teammates can go back and forth, and the clients can go back and forth, but it's all going to stay under one singular thread, and it's not going to get lost into translation. So one big advice if you're using Slack, especially for client communication, using threads to reply to specific messages is something that I would highly encourage you guys to do. And then also one oftentimes neglected thing, and this is honestly just the best practice, is if you're trying to reach someone in a channel, always tag the person that you're trying to reach, because depending on how people have their notification settings set up, they might not always get a ping or a notification if you just, send a message, in this example, hey, can you send me this doc, right? So if I wanted to refer to a specific person, I would definitely make sure to tag them. So oftentimes their settings will always include a push notification or something when they're actually tagging a specific channel. So just overall best practice, if you're trying to reach someone in a channel, definitely tag them. And if you're struggling and going, a lot of times back and forth, this is one of our favorite integrations that we use all the time. And it's the Zoom integration that allows you basically to write /Zoom, and it's just going to kickstart a quick Zoom meeting so you can actually hop on and get everything ready without needing to, go to the Zoom website or open up the Zoom app to start a new meeting, then send everyone links. You just basically type in /Zoom and press enter, and that's just going to pop up this notification where you can just press join. All of your team members can press join, and all of a sudden you guys got a meeting room that's quick and set up. So either we use this or sometimes we hop on huddles. Huddles can sometimes be buggy. I'm not a biggest fan of them. So using this for sort of Zoom integration is a lot of the times the way we resolve, small meetings that need to happen that are oftentimes just 5 minutes meetings instead of going back and forth over messages. And then the two channels that I think all companies should have is, one is going to be a wins channel, and another one is going to be a random or basically shitpost channel. So the wins channel, as it says, it's a place where the entire company is posting their own personal wins, client wins, and it's just a feel-good channel that everyone can sort of hop into and basically get motivated and see all the results that you're generating either for your clients or people internally. We prompt our team members a lot to basically give praise to one another in the wins channel. When someone does a great job, we definitely tell them to post it into the wins channel. And then the second type of channel is the random channel, or what we call the shitpost channel, where, if there's some non-work related stuff, I would definitely make sure that you have a channel for that. People like to share memes, people like to share songs, some people even have like a book club channel and stuff like that. So definitely make sure to have less serious channels where your team can actually connect, engage with each other, and make sure they have a place where, they can send memes, talk about gaming, their favorite books and stuff like that. So definitely have those sort of non-work related channels. That's one of the best practices that we implement. All right, so now I'm going to show you some of the more advanced features that we implement for our clients and then ourselves internally. And these things will require some custom coding, some custom automation. So if you're looking for inspiration, definitely make sure to use this section. But if you're just getting started with Slack, you can sort of just take this as, this is the end game. This is what's possible with it. But I wouldn't over stress this if you're just getting started. So one of the things that we do for one of our clients, Matt, who happens to run our cold email, is we basically have this custom Slack bot created that allows him to send us custom notifications, custom forms, have buttons that we can engage with, and have feedback and back and forth. So instead of just sending us, hey, here's this call I booked you guys, his bot sends us this call feedback form where we can basically say if the call was held, no-showed, or rescheduled. And if we press reschedule, these are actually interactive. We can select the date, we can select the time, and then submit those. And it's basically all like fully interactive, like a completely custom app within Slack. So these custom Slack apps are really cool. They're basically built with a technology called Slack Block Kit. So there's this entire guide and documentation around it where you can create these super cool custom things. So if you have someone that has a development background, I would highly encourage you to take a look at these. It's really cool when you have a really branded, nice Slack app. It always looks amazing for the clients. They're always in love with it because they're rare to see, and clients rarely have these engaged. So definitely, if you have someone that has development experience, I would build something like that. Or if you want us to build it, just reach out for us in the comments. The other thing that we also do for a lot of our clients is we basically automate a lot of the project notifications and overall just project management within Slack itself. So I'll show you an example of what we do for our internal project management. So I'll just show you one of our channels and how we use Slack emoji reactions to basically create new tickets, create new tags in our project management system. So let's say we have, a new task that's, a message, a client sent you something, and we basically have this automation where we can just emoji react to it to generate, basically kickstart an automation that takes that information from Slack and then plugs that into our project management tool. So in a second now, you'll see this custom Slack app start happen again and basically say change requests recorded and visit the change requests record in our Airtable, right? So it's an automation that happens in the backend that's triggered by Slack emoji reactions. So a lot of the times that people use this for is, creating new tickets or escalating internal messages, logging information. So you can use the emoji reaction on a message to trigger a lot of the back-end automations. This is how we just happen to use it internally. And then some of the other things that we do as well in terms of just overall updates in Slack is we use Slack a lot for, status alerts, a lot of the, overdue notification. If a task goes overdue, we oftentimes just send a notification to that channel with all the records details. So the person that's actually responsible for the due task can see it, get a notification, and basically get a bump up. So oftentimes a really good example of using Slack is to aid your project management tool, but I would refrain from using Slack as the way you do your project management. So if you're using ClickUp, you're using Airtable, Monday, whatever your tool you're using, they usually have integrated Slack integrations that are already first-party integrations. They can set up simple notifications that, notify you when a project goes overdue or a task goes overdue or a person gets assigned a task and stuff like that. So oftentimes just having that additional bump in notification is really helpful to move a lot of the stuff forward if it's really nicely coordinated. Right. So outside of these advanced workflows and some of the features that we use, one of the things that we try to make sure Slack is an integral part of our process is our client onboarding process. So if you want to see more how to actually onboard your clients using Slack, watch this next video.